This is going to be a Mythic Sarkareth guide specifically for Shadow Priest progression. This guide assumes that you already know the basic mechanics and mythic mechanics of Sarkareth, and will only go over specifically what you can do as a Shadow Priest to make your life easier during prog. First thing to note is this fight is very scripted. If you want to learn specific timings or go learn anything like tricks about your strategy, you just watch a kill video, look at logs. It's a very scripted fight and it'll help you a lot to research before progression. So now let's go into talents. On the right side of the tree, the Shadow Priest tree, this is the very specific build that everyone is running for any fight that has ads that you can get psychic link value. Sarkareth has a bunch of ads in P2 that you will want to run Shadow Crash for. This is the same build that you're running on Echo of Neltharion as well. It's essentially the single target build with Shadow Crash. You'll find this in most of the top logs. One thing to note, I'm running Mental Fortitude. The ads in P2 do need a kick. However, it should not be your job. If for whatever reason your raid leader wants you to kick with your silence, then you can run silence and it's not a big deal. The other talent that I want to make note of is on the left side of the tree. It's called Angel's Mercy. This talent is extremely overpowered on Sarkareth, especially for progression, because of how much damage you are constantly taking throughout the fight, especially in phase 1. I'll show you exactly like the value, the power of this talent while we're going over the kill video, but you should find points in your tree to run this. If you look at all the top logs, Shadow Priests are like maybe half of them are running Angel's Mercy, and there's just some variant of things you have to sacrifice, whether it be improved Mass Dispel, you know, Angelic Bulwark, whatever. You just find one that works for you, and it is 100% worth it for progression. Next we'll just go into the kill video and talk about specific things you can do. So I'll separate this guide into like 3 parts. This will be P1, where your main focus is surviving. This is by far the most damage you're going to take in the fight. So I'll try to go over like what defensives I use, etc. And then we'll go over P2 and P3. Going into the pool, you're going to want to press fade before you gate. So as you can see here, I press fade, go into the gate, because if you see how low you drop during prog, you're going to get even lower. If you don't have fade up with the 10% DR, you'll die a lot more. So it's just something you can do to help your healers out. Then you just go into your cooldowns with Vampiric Embrace and you should stabilize. The next big mechanic will happen after the first dance with the Void Bombs. And that's going to be the clear onto the breath at around 40 seconds into the fight. So once we get there, I'll show you what to do. So you're baiting bombs here, third bomb is dropping, then you go to the breath clear. So breath clear gets baited onto the ranged, and what you want to do is press fade and desperate prayer. This is a lot of damage you're going to take. You need to make sure you have fade and desperate prayer going into this. And a trick that you can use is right before the cast ends, so right around here, you can either look at the Liquid Pack Weak Aura or the boss cast. You already want to be moving out of the breath. The breath works in such a way that it does like 3 different instances of damage very quickly, and if you take more than 1 tick of the breath, you will probably die. So you just want to take that 1 tick of the breath. And as a priest, well, it was my job to mass the spell. If you have 2 holy priests, don't worry about this, but most important thing is you want to make sure you have a fade and desperate prayer. If you are low after you fade and desperate prayer, you should also press health pot. There are 2 parts of P1 where you will be using health pot, because the next part that the next time you want to health pot is around 6 minutes into the fight. 6:30 or something, so you want to use health pot before like 1 minute 35 seconds. So this is a good place to health pot right after you clear on the breath. And I'll show you the other one if you don't need a health pot here. So I did not health pot here because my health was high enough with just Desperate Prayer. So you're just continuing the P1 dance, just taking damage up the butt. One thing to note is just a small thing on this last set of bomb baits, you're gonna have to be dodging swirlies. So just pay extra attention. This last set is the hardest one just because you have to dodge swirlies at the same time as you're moving from the bomb. So as you can see, there's swirlies on the floor and bombs on the floor. They are the same color. It's just like, just try to pay attention.
Symbols a little scuff, minded up personals.
Okay. Just do your best to live here, guys.
This is the next big damage event. If you have not health potted, you will 100% health pot here. You just press your health pot. So this is going to be the Mass Disintegrate clear. If you got Mass Disintegrate earlier in the fight, you do not have to do this. Like, you don't have to get cleared by this Mass Disintegrate, and you just step off to the side. But since I still have a stack of the debuff, I have to go. The Disintegrate happens to be on me, so for this part of the fight, 125, because I'm running Angel's Mercy, I have Desperate Prayer up again. So you fade Desperate Prayer again. So there are two parts of P1 where you need to have Desperate Prayer. That's at 40 seconds for the first breath clear, and the second one is for the Disintegrate clear at 1 minute 30. So you want to make sure that every pool you're focusing on having DP up.
So look where the arrow is, it's not directly along the line.
So right here, after you clear, there's going to be a bunch of swirlies, and this is where everyone's, like, when you're progging P1, this is where people are going to die. What I recommend doing for prog is, as soon as this thing goes out, right? You just, as soon as the Mass Disintegrate clear happens, you just focus on living. So what you're going to do is you're first going to health pot as soon as you drop anywhere low while dodging your feet. If you get hit by a swirly, you're dead. Do not get hit by a swirly. You health pot, right? And then you're going to press Dispersion for prog. So here you can see I health potted, right? But when you're progging this phase, it will not look this clean. People will be dying left and right. People will be getting hit by swirlies, whatever. You just press Dispersion and you'll live this phase every time. You'll live this part of the fight every time. So how it would look is, once again, you go for the Disintegrate clear. You have Fade and Desperate Prayer up for the initial hit. You take the hit with Fade and Desperate Prayer up. You start dodging your feet. You health pot, and then partway through the Glittering Surge cast, so you health pot here, and now you Dispersion. That's just how it should be every pull until it looks clean, and then what you do is you do everything except for Dispersion so you can keep hitting the boss. So for the first like 90-100 pulls of prog, I was pressing Dispersion every pull on that specific part of the fight. So as we go into P2, I'm going to reiterate the most important thing of P1 is using Fade and Desperate Prayer. Fade on pool before you gate, Fade Desperate Prayer at 40 seconds before you get hit by the breath, and Fade Desperate Prayer again at 1 minute 30 when you're clearing with Mass Disintegrate. During prog, you would want to go from Fade Desperate Prayer into Health Pot and Dispersion at the end of P1, just so you can guarantee some progress. Last thing I will say is you will want to use your health pot either at the 40-second timing, anytime really, before 130, because you just take so much damage during this fight. You might need to health pot while you're doing the bomb dance, whatever. Just make sure you use it and don't lose it. I don't know. Yeah, so we'll now go into the P1 intermission into P2. So I think P1 intermission into P2 is probably the easiest part of the fight. You're not really taking much damage, and there's like very little that you actually have to learn, so I'll just go over like the pain points. So the first pain point of this for progression is just making sure that you're stacked going down and that you're stacked to drop your bomb 5 seconds later, a lot of the times people like forget, or they try to like squeeze out an extra shard and just get back too late. Since you're so slow as a priest, what I like to do is I just like to grab the one of the shards and just instantly run back to the spot so I'm there every time.
1 moon.
Other than that, it's like super easy. You just go grab your shards and come out before the minigame ends. And
We're coming
usually,
up in
since
3,
you're so slow
2,
as this class, you'll
1,
only get like
up.
8 shards, or 7 or 8, and sometimes if you're
early,
lucky,
watch the
a
tanks
bit
here.
more. So there's gonna be 3 breaths in this phase. I would say you target Sarkareth and cleave for the first breath, and then you target the big ad, the null recollection, for the second and third breath.
Cleaving off the boss, and ranged bombs in 2, 1 bombs.
So when you're baiting bombs, you can do a smaller movement between the first and second bomb, and then once the second bomb falls, you make a larger movement so that you don't take any dot damage from the bombs actually falling. So as soon as that second bomb falls, make sure that you're far enough away so that you don't take dot damage.
Line up.
Line up for the duress. Don't get
So
knocked
when
into a
these
blossom.
duresses come out and knock you, if you have an evoker in your raid, I highly suggest setting up like a rescue with them. It just makes this phase a lot easier. You just save a lot of movement.
Zax.
So like
3,
here my
2,
evoker will
1.
rescue me on every
Spell.
knock back to where we got knocked from.
Finish the ad. Good. Ranged move in for breath.
4,
Melee don't chase. You're baiting
2.
pools.
1.
So it depends on your strat here, but I like this strat better where everyone goes into melee except for one player who's getting the breath baited on them. If you use the other strat where all the range stack and bait the breath, then you would just be where like Oharu is, the Bimkin, instead of in melee range. It's just a little bit more movement, but it really doesn't matter.
Melee stacked item.
So this would be the second breath, so you want to start targeting the empty recollection
Next is
rather than the
gateway
boss,
duress.
and just
Find
cleave.
the gateway, and melee get here fast if it's on you. Keep watching kicks and stops.
This is probably the only hard part of the fight, because, so this is the part where you get knocked and then you gate back to bait the bombs. This is because a lot of the times the knock will get baited onto a melee who has to run out and get dispelled really quickly, so he might not like line up with the gate properly. So you kind of want to make sure that you adjust yourself right before he gets dispelled so that you don't get knocked the wrong way. So you can see like what's gonna happen here is our demon hunter is gonna come out with the duress, but then he's going to be slightly like to the left of where I want to be, so I move my character like at the last second. I move towards the boss so that I get knocked the right way.
3, 2, 1. Dispel.
So right there I took like that one
Gate
step so that
plants,
I got
watch
knocked to the
kicks,
end of the
baiting
gate.
bombs in 2,
Because there's going
1.
to be a lot of, so you see like these pierces at the edge of the room where my mouse is. This is going to there's going to be a lot of instances where if you're not paying attention you could get knocked into these pierces, right? This is like the only hard part of P2 in my
Go.
opinion.
Stay at ranged.
2.
Baiting
1.
breath. Good. Move to the other side. Melee along the edge of the breath.
For me, man.
Hit the reflection. Big ad.
So this
Big
is the
heals on
third
the
breath
finger.
again, and you're targeting the reflection. The only other thing I'll note about this phase in terms of defensive usage is you want to press Desperate
Stay on
Prayer
the same side of these.
like anytime in this phase before this last duress, or even like right here would be okay, because you want to back up for the first like big damage of P3.
This is good.
So using Desperate Prayer here would be fine, but
4,
anytime later
3,
it might not
2,
be up when you need
1.
it.
Dispel and watch kicks. Be on the outside Venn diagram. Don't go early. We're going in 3.
During prog, you're going to be going downstairs for the intermission. You want to check your HP, and if it's below 50%, just use like whatever you have. I would recommend Dispersion as your #1 priority if you have it, and then if not, just like Health Pot, whatever you have left. You just want to make sure that you can consistently go downstairs. Yeah.
2.
So when you go in here, don't panic. A lot of like you can like there's a lot of grace period.
Yeah.
between when the holes spawn and when you can actually fall through them. So you just kind of want to stutter your way through, slowly going forward, and then just like drop your puddle off and run forward after that, and you'll never die. The only thing I will say is if you have very high stacks of the dot, so as you can see I have like 3 stacks of the dot, but let's say I had like 8 or 9, first of all you'd be taking a ton of damage, so you want a dispersion early, and then second you want to go in later, and you want to go in like on the side. If you go in at the same time as everybody else, you will spawn a swirly super early, and that actually might kill people.
3,
But if you're at like 5 or 6 stacks, just go in at the same time as everyone else, you'll be fine.
2, 1, in.
Yeah, so that's the end of P2. It's super easy phase, actually. The only hard part of the phase, again, is like getting that gate knock correct. And then just making sure that you have enough HP to survive when going down at the very end. And then, yeah, so that's the end of P2, and then I'll talk about P3. Okay, so we're going to go into P2 intermission, super easy. Pick up your 10 shards, come back up before the debuff expires, and then get ready for the first hard sequence of P3. I like to think P3 has 3 like pain points or difficult sequences to learn, and then once you get that down, you just kill the boss. So the first one will start right after you come back up and you're in your cooldowns.
Off the healing absorbs and watch the tanks.
It's going to be hurtling barrage into bomb baits at the same time as a black hole is coming out. So what you need to do is just bait your bombs cleanly, right? If you do not have hurtling barrage, the only thing you have to focus on is baiting bombs well.
And then we're baiting bombs.
So if you have the black hole or no mechanic, you just stack here.
1.
I recommend having a weak aura. As you can see, I have a purple weak aura that when it pops up, I know the first bomb has fallen. This is in the liquid pack. And then when it finishes casting, I know the second bomb has fallen.
And melee.
So you bait the first bomb left, second bomb to the right, and then you just run into melee. It's actually very easy, like in theory, but in practice, when a bunch of stuff is going on, it actually is quite hectic, and we wiped a lot to not baiting the bombs properly.
Perfect placement. Beautiful.
So the other thing to note is if you have hurtling barrage, which is the mechanic that comes out before the bombs, right here, you have to find where your image is right away. That's going to shoot the barrage, and then you just have to plan to move out of the raid. If the image is to the front right of the boss or behind you, you can bait both bombs and then just move out to the right. But if the image is to the front left of the boss, it's the worst one. You can only bait one bomb, and then you have to move out to the left. And if the second bomb gets baited on you, you just have to call it for your for whoever is responsible for it.
And then we're baiting bombs in 3, 2, 1.
So as you can see again, this is I didn't get a single mechanic, so I just baited the bombs, run into melee, AFK hit the boss. Really easy, right?
Beautiful. And just healing.
And the next thing that's going to happen is the winds that you need to hide from. So one thing to note is the winds will push you back for a few seconds no matter where you are at the start of the cast. So you want to make sure you're not standing right in front of a swirly, even if you already are in the safe spot.
Just relax, deep breath. This is the gateway sequence.
The next thing, I would call this like the second pain point of the fight, the first one being that triple mechanic bomb dance. This one is just a mass dispel into gateway. It's actually not that hard mechanically. You just look for the mass dispel. You should have a weak aura that shows the cast on your screen, and right when it finishes you take the gate. The hard part is actually how much damage you take, especially if you're the priest in charge of casting mass dispel. This is why you need to have Fade and Desperate Prayer up for this part of the fight, which is why in P2 I said you have to use it like before that last infinite duress.
Make sure you use a personal before we dispel.
So I personal here, 5 seconds before I dispel. I cast Mass Dispel, and as soon as the cast finishes, I'm gating. So one thing is you want to make sure that you finish the cast before you press Gateway, or else you'll wipe your raid. You actually have quite a bit of leeway after the cast finishes to gate, so don't worry about trying to like mid-max the gate right after your cast. You have like half a second to do it. The next thing that I can say is as soon as you gate, your camera will be forced into this position or something similar. Just make sure you're looking towards the center of the room and you can shadow crash instantly. You can shadow crash these glimmers. It'll save you 3 globals
Better stepping
after
the
you move
rocks.
out.
Lots of work on Fury here, Sack and Miscardio.
I'm gonna need Jesus when I pick up my bomb.
Next part of the fight is super easy.
Bombs in 5,
Baiting bombs, going into melee.
bombs in 3.
AFK hitting the
2,
boss.
1, go left, and then forward, and spell warding the black hole goes to Skull on Benuff again.
Now.
Spell ward Benuff, and heal the Warlocks.
I died. Somebody needs to pick up
Go
my bomb.
hard.
You should ignore this part. I had to pick up a bomb to back up. Yeah. So
Bomb, go hard, get
what
the
you would be doing at this part of the fight is you're just going to be AFK in the middle of the room, just hitting the boss. There's nothing happening. There's going to be another winds that you hide from. You might have to press like Vampiric Embrace because everyone's taking a lot of damage. But yeah, essentially you just target dummy Sark.
hiding. Can res will here.
So yeah, here see everyone's in the middle behind the boss, just target dummy hitting Sarkareth.
Okay, this is the sequence here.
And
Black
then
Wolf,
this
check your
next
stacks.
part,
If you have
after
three
the
stacks or
hide,
so.
is going to be the most difficult part of the fight. So around here is where you want to make sure you're checking your stacks. If you have anything below 3 stacks, you need to soak a swirly. Sometime around here would be okay. This is only going to be the case if you went downstairs, right? Which should not happen if you're playing priest, unless for whatever reason you're assigned a bomb. More realistically, you're either going to have 3 or 4 stacks. If you have 0 mechanics happen to you, you'll have 3 stacks. If you had a hurtling barrage, you'll have 4 stacks. And then obviously if you messed up and got hit by Surly, you'll probably be dead, to be honest. But
If we died, we also
so
have extra swirly at some
here I
point.
have no stacks, but if I had not had to back up the bomb, I would have had 3 stacks of the debuff and I would soak this black hole.
Okay, black
Everyone
hole
with
stuff
3 stacks will soak this black hole.
hard. Soaking here on the
So what this sequence is going to be, and why it's so difficult, is because the entire raid will have 4 stacks of the debuff, so they're taking damage, a lot of damage over time. And you're going to have a black hole to soak. You move out of the black hole, you have to dispel a knock, you get knocked back, and then you have to bait bombs. It is a very hectic part of the fight. You're taking a lot of damage, and yeah, and there's just a lot of like stuff happening, right? So all you have to think about really is check your stacks after the hide. You have 3 stacks, soak the black hole, right?
Edge,
So here, the black hole's
personals,
coming out, 3 people with 3 stacks are soaking
and then
it,
Duress in the middle, knocking us toward blue.
then you get a debuff, okay? So what you want to do as a priest, if this debuff is on a ranged DPS, here, or like a healer, here it's on a ranged healer, our evoker, as soon as you get knocked back, you want to grip the person that the debuff is on. As well as if you have a personal for this knockback, you want to use it. I did not have my dispersion up because I had to back up the bomb, so I had to use dispersion. But you would probably want to dispersion this knockback. I only had Desperate Prayer and Fade, so that's just what I used. But I think dispersion is the play here. So you would press dispersion, you get knocked, right?
Being
You
bombs.
get out of dispersion and grip the person. Ideally your healer will grip, like the healer priest, if you have a holy priest or dis priest will grip this person, but you can help too. So as you can see, I gripped Sintro, who had the debuff, as well as our priest, so he kind of
On
got like
blue,
double
baiting
gripped.
bombs on blue.
So this part of the fight, when you're progging, you are taking so much damage, right? You should have healing cooldowns assigned right after this knockback, so you want to get into melee, but you have to bait bombs first. That's why dispersion is so strong, like for Shadow Priest. Because if you dispersion the knockback, and you're able to sit in dispersion for 2 or 3 seconds, if you're not the one that has to grip the person that had the duress, you'll probably be like 80% HP, while the rest of your raid will be pretty low. So then you just can like focus on this next part of the fight, because like right after you get knocked back, right, you're baiting bombs. And this is a YOLO bait.
And stutter step
So the first bomb comes out,
our way
I can see it to the right of me, so I don't have to move. I kind of want the second bomb to be baited on me.
in. Health stone if you haven't.
Second bomb gets baited on me, perfect, and then you just move into melee.
Good.
Get him.
And the fight does, like, the hard stuff does not end here, right? You're taking damage. I have 6 stacks of the debuff. I'm taking a lot of damage. This is where you would use your second health pot and health stone. You would use everything you have left to survive, because once you get this sequence down, the boss will die, provided it's low enough.
Banana.
In darkness.
So, like I said, you get knocked back. You get into melee as fast as you can after the second bomb gets dropped. You're using everything you can to live. And now what you're going to do.
Finding a swirly
So
in
here I
3,
should have health potted. I think it was so hectic I forgot.
1. Find a
But like you're health potting here, you're health stoning here,
swirly follows.
and then you're looking for like a swirly to go down as a group. Well, I mean, this is just what everyone does. It's just part of the strat. There's nothing special
To our right. To our right.
about being a priest. It's just that like sequence you want to have dispersion up. It will make it a lot easier, similar to like the end of P1.
Good. We're downstairs. Relax. Rock
And
spawning into you.
that's about it. So you
We're staying
get your
downstairs,
last
don't
set of
come up
10
early, and
orbs.
hit duress in about 6. Remember to dwarf it off. Keep Billy Butter
You
alive.
wait to come up,
We're coming up in 4, 3.
and
2,
watch how fast the boss
1.
dies after you get up cleanly.
Don't get cleaved. Don't get cleaved.
So
In the
you're
black
gonna want
hole,
to
in the
soak the
black
black
Don't
hole
get
instantly,
cleaved. Don't get cleaved.
and then you just AFK and hit the boss. The only
Certainly.
things that can wipe you here are so there's 3 things that can wipe you, and they're like the easiest things ever. It's just if people panic. It's going to be forgetting to soak the black hole, and then it's going to be putting a hurtling barrage through the raid, and then the last thing is going to be dispelling an infinite duress if the boss lives that long. These are 3 things that are super easy to do. You
Barrage
should
is-
just, as long as you're aware of them, you'll never mess it
Barrage is
up,
out.
right?
Watch kicks. Yeah. Second pot.
So yeah,
Barrage is
we're
out,
pumping the
barrage is
boss.
out.
I have the
Hiding,
barrage, so
make
I
sure
just
you're
move
not
out of the
gonna
raid.
hide.
If you have goblin jump here, you can goblin jump right here, like right after it shoots
Okay,
through you, you
duress is
goblin
coming
jump back
8.
in,
Do
but
not
mine
immune
wasn't
these
up.
off. Do not immune these off. Heal
And
people with duress.
yeah, boss will die, like actually very soon after this. So that's all that it is for Shadow Priest on progging Mythic Scale Commander Sarkareth. Essentially, there's going to be, I would say, P1 is going to be the hardest part to live. Just use your defensives like I suggested, and it should be easier for you to prog. P3 is the hardest mechanically, and P2 is kind of like AFK as an S-Priest, and it's mostly just about like your guild's ad management. And then, yeah, once you go into that P3 intermission and come back up, the boss will die. And that's about it.